It's so hard to find information on things that happened before the internet. Like, it's people's testimonial, which shows up in books I've tracked down, or it's newspaper articles, or it's court filings. But now this is happening in the 90s in Seattle, and so everyone actually has, not initially, but like pretty quickly has internet. And so I can find all the forum threads and stuff.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, so
Oh
from
my
here on out,
gosh.
we have a lot more
We have a lot more information.
spelunking.
Yeah.
Are we good? Is the mic rolling?
The mic's rolling.
Cool. Hey there, Cosmic Descriers.
Welcome to another flashlight.
This week, we'll be talking about Wizards of the Coast, the behemoth of the TTRPG world.
Let's roll initiative.
So, at the end of the last flashlight, we talked about the card game Magic the Gathering, right? And its publisher, Wizards of the Coast. Mm-hmm. And we're going to call it WotC throughout this episode to keep things a little more coherent. That's what the cool kids call it.
Okay, I want to be a cool kid.
Right? I actually didn't know this.
I'm learning the lingo.
I learned this lingo. I first heard this at Phoenix Games on Broadway.
Yep.
I was there and I was looking at the source books, and one of the employees, they're all very knowledgeable, all very hostile, was like, "You're looking for WotC books, aren't you?" And I'd not heard that WotC said like that, like WOTC WotC before. And I was like, I don't know what that is, which the employee took to mean like, you have no fucking clue what you're doing.
Yeah.
And starts explaining that they were correct. I fully just didn't know the term. And, but yeah, apparently that's what the cool kids call it. And I felt pressure ever since that like very intimidating experience of not knowing to call it.
You got comic book guide.
I got comic book person for sure. But yeah, Wizards of the Coast, WotC, they bought TSR, the company that was making Dungeons and Dragons in 1997, and they've been the company that makes Dungeons and Dragons ever since then.
Yes.
And I think it would be cool to talk about how WotC became like the titan it is today. Because it fits in with a lot of what we're discussing this season about the line between like hobbyists and business people, and how, you know, in the history of tabletop gaming, in the history of D&D in particular, we see a lot of this growth from like, this is a fun hobby project with my buddies, to like, this is business. And, you know, that's what happened with WotC. A difference between WotC and TSR, they emerged in very different eras, right? Mm-hmm. TSR, the original publishers, that's like the early 70s. WotC, these new publishers, that's the 90s. Really different environments for hobbies in general, and especially for something like tabletop gaming. And so things ended up going quite a bit differently for WotC than they did for TSR. And okay, if you're the kind of person who's listening to a podcast episode about the corporate history of Dungeons and Dragons, you're probably expecting us to talk about like the heavy hand of Hasbro over the last few years, right? That will come in later weeks, we promise.
Yeah.
Hasbro bought WotC in fall 1999. So 2.5 years after WotC bought TSR and became the people who make Dungeons and Dragons, Hasbro bought WotC. And so like a lot of what we think about as the history of like WotC as the owner of D&D and the publishers of D&D happened after they were already, you know, a wholly owned piece of Hasbro, this giant multinational. But like for most of that time, Hasbro was kind of leaving their golden goose alone and letting WotC do its thing. Not so much recently. We'll talk about that in a future episode. So yeah, WotC. This started out as a hobby project by Peter Adkinson in Seattle, who wanted to self-publish games in 1990. WotC's first project, The Primal Order, came out a couple years later in 1992. It's a lot of fun. I really like this source book. It's basically about high-level games. So I joke about this with a few of our guests, where your campaign starts as like, we're going to go fetch 10 blue raspberries, and the last session is like, we're ascending to godhood.
Yeah.
This is a source book about ascending to godhood. and about how
Oh.
to work that into your campaign. And it's really it's about deities and their interactions with PCs and how someone can go from being a PC or an NPC in your campaign to a deity.
To a deity. Is that the first time that sort of mechanic has been directly addressed, like in a source book?
This is more of a source book rather than being like directly addressed. This is like, here's a framework for how you can make that work in any crunchy stats intensive TTRPG. So they introduced these stats like primal base, which is like the stature of the divinity, and primal flux, how much power the divinity has to like do, miracles or plagues or whatnot right now.
Yeah.
And we'll link to it in the show notes. It's a lot of fun. They have a bunch of sample items for a world of Equiforms, who are horse people. I initially thought they meant horse furries, but reading through it, it feels a lot like Equestria, the setting of My Little Pony. So it's like, it's fun, it's flavorful. They're working off of some like cool pop culture references, I think. And it is written by like earnest amateurs who are doing this as a hobby. The dedication page to the book at the top says, "To our shareholders."
Ooh.
And it's just them and their friends, right?
Oh, that's cute.
I'm going to quote the foreword at some length. This is from the foreword of the Primal Order. "The only regret I have is that I no longer have a vast, lovably incoherent, cheap and cheerful D&D multiverse campaign where I can introduce Joey, the god of basket weaving. And I must not compromise the epic high tone of my Gloranthan campaign by introducing such a frivolous and unheroic cult. Must not even think of such a travesty. Not even if my players begged me. No siree." So like, nerds really did talk like that back in the day, which I love. We need to bring back that whole tone of that paragraph. But it's kind of cool what they did, right? They had this hobby project. They wanted it to become a serious thing, right? And so spun it up as a business and operated their hobby project as a business, which I'm gonna leave Reilly. I'm gonna give Reilly the soapbox for a moment to talk about running hobby projects as businesses.
Oh, putting me on the spot.
I absolutely am. You have strong feelings on this one.
Hobby projects as businesses. What are you teaming up to do? Should I talk about the inner workings of this podcast? We're not supposed to talk meta.
I'm so
on
sorry.
The mic, or are we?
I think we can. It's the flashlight. If you're listening to this, you probably already know. I mean, we treat this as we have an LLC. We have meetings with agendas.
I have to-do lists on the production side. You send a lot of emails.
We kind of do treat this
we
like
put calendar dates in our we invite each other to calendar work meetings, and we get stuff done. But also, it's literally work.
It is. I mean, doing any like kind of hobby undertaking is work fundamentally.
Yeah.
Putting something out into the world is work. They treated this as a business from the get-go, even though it is quite fun and silly in tone. And I think that's a cool strategy.
Did they structure it better than Gygax?
So one distinction is that this Peter Adkinson at the time, like, he's got an MBA, right?
Yeah.
Systems analyst at Boeing. This is someone who has like kind of a businessy background to start with.
Yeah.
Right. I believe that Gary Gygax worked in insurance underwriting.
Wow.
Why? Wow.
Oh, no reason.
How mysterious. But yeah, Peter Adkinson was someone who had that kind of business background and maybe thought of things in that way, and structured it in a way that, and also this project of publishing this book it wasn't the same kind of capital intensive crunch that TSR was in early on, I think is what you're getting at.
Right. And it was like the crunch of constantly needing to put out content in order to pay back loans from your last content. That's one way of doing it, but infinite growth, right, is required.
infinite and unerring growth, right?
Yeah.
TSR couldn't have a bad year.
And then, right, or else they're done.
Yeah.
But also, the other thing I was referencing was the shareholders could just buy more stake in the company.
Gosh, yes. As far as I know, there was no such arrangement here. If there was, the shareholders did not exercise it. But that's a pretty non-standard arrangement. And they dedicated the book to their shareholders. You know, the shareholders were clearly their buddies.
Was it just one book too? How many?
So yeah, the timing basically works like this. Company launches in 1990.
Mm-hmm.
They publish this book in 1992. And in 1993, they become the publishers of Magic the Gathering. So like...
Yeah. And we all know Magic the Gathering. That didn't really go anywhere.
Yeah, clearly it was a real
Like
failure.
little trading cards. There's no money in trading cards.
Oh my gosh.
Baseball cards, Pokemon, Yu-Gi-Oh.
We'll get to Pokemon cards actually.
Oh, are they connected?
Yes, they're definitely connected.
Oh, it's the multiverse of tabletop business.
But yeah, I mean, look, seriously, Magic the Gathering took off incredibly fast after its launch in 1993. It was so new, so different from everything that came before it. It was the first commercially successful collectible card game. And in fact, Wizards of the Coast, WotC, had the patent on collectible card games in the United States.
No way.
Yes.
Because there's baseball cards have been around for a long time,
Yes.
but there's not you play baseball and then you have cards with your favorite players, but
Yes.
you do not use the cards to play baseball.
I've never played baseball, but I don't think that it's heavy on the cards.
But they patented the mechanic of using cards
Of
collectible cards because
we'll link to the patent. Yeah.
We'll link to the patent. But yeah,
Why not, right?
Why not?
The patent is public information. And like it literally it really was something new, right? And it had such strategic richness. Pardon me, there was like nothing that came before it. Like the whole concept, when we talk about a game having a meta, like the idea of a meta game, that in the gaming context, the word metagame comes from early discussions of how Magic cards interact with each other.
And did they also have that built in the ongoing packs to what's the word I'm looking for? They having a economy of rare cards mixed with common cards,
Yes.
and then buying the individual booster packs,
Yes.
and then having new releases.
That's been the case from the get-go.
Okay.
Yes.
Amazing.
And these different packs fit together in different ways,
Yeah.
created interesting combinations. I'll actually link to the write-up of the very first World Championships, because you can kind of see when people are really starting at the time to figure out how these cards all interact with each other. And like in the write-up, they use metagame, but like with a hyphen and it's in quotes. Like this is like a real new word at the time. That's what people don't talk about, the meta of games. But they started to with Magic the Gathering. And this meant incidentally, like at this point, this hobbyist who published a book with that, like, oh, you know, my home campaign, Gloranthan, at this point, he's able to go work full time at WotC.
Yeah.
And yeah, so on that note of that patent, before I forget, when Pokemon cards became a big thing in the US in the late 90s, WotC was their US publisher.
Of course.
Because they had the patent on collectible card games, and this became a huge line of business for Wizards of the Coast.
So in order for
Nintendo
to do business on the card side, well, no, did Nintendo doesn't publish? Did they publish the Pokemon cards? Because it started as a baseball card company.
So when in this era, so we're thinking like 1997 now, or 1998, Nintendo was licensing with WotC to publish the cards in the United States.
Right, because they literally have to legally.
Yes.
The patent.
That's where you get that's how you publish these cards in the US. And you know, I think it's worth contrasting what happened. This is like a pretty meteoric rise. Like they published this book in 92, Magic comes out in 93, and within a couple of years this is like a huge company, right? They by 1995 the company has $65 million in sales. in 1995 dollars, right? So this company grows so fast. This is 2 years after they launched Magic the Gathering.
That's astronomical.
Yeah.
But it's also they're just selling cardboard.
Well,
Like,
they're designing the cards.
Yeah.
They're putting a ton of money into the art, and they're doing these things in ways that are not, that wasn't really done in the same way at the time. Like rule books from that era don't have this production value necessarily, or for the most part. We've seen some rough ones in the games we've played, that's for sure. And but yeah, they're making these cards. People really like them. They're making other games as well. And I think it's worth thinking about what was different in the economy when they launched, right, compared to when TSR launched.
well, I mean, 70s U.S. economy versus 90s. That's a
Yes.
real
70s Midwest versus
Yeah.
90s Seattle.
Seattle, Port City. Yeah.
And this is,
There's no lining up for gasoline,
there's no lining up for gasoline.
lining up for magic cards.
Fully, that was
Yeah.
already becoming a thing. Yeah. But this is an era when Seattle's growing fast and people have money, and people in the top 20% of the income distribution in the US are spending a lot more on hobbies, leisure, recreation in general. Right? We pulled Bureau of Labor and Statistics data for this, and in 1973, at the start of TSR, people in the top quintile were spending about $5,000 a year on leisure and hobbies other than vacations. It was over $7,400 a year in 1993. So people's budget for like hobbies, recreation, activities was like 50% higher, or at least people in the top quintile, the people with a disposable income. And gaming as like a hobby and the whole subculture around it had exploded. Gen Con, that big TSR owned convention, had 300 attendees in 1973, but they had 20,000 in 1993. So like the industry into which they were selling was bigger. People had more money to spend.
Yeah.
And they were launching in Seattle, which was a city at the time. It was creating a lot of tech wealth.
Yeah, and people can communicate and talk about their hobbies through the internet.
Yes.
And forums.
Yes.
Because when did eBay launch? It's like mid 90s, a little bit earlier, but so that goes into the scarcity economy.
Yeah. eBay launched in 95, so this is kind of that same era.
Yeah, everything is coming together.
Yeah, and so WotC's become like a huge company, and it's a huge company that is doing well on Magic cards, as you say. that is like their bread and butter.
Right.
is card games, and it became so popular that in 1995, Peter Adkison was musing about leaving the tabletop role-playing game industry, that WotC was not going to do that anymore. I'm going to once again read a Peter Adkison quote. This one is from 1995, and we'll link in the show notes to the source for this. We are pretty much saying goodbye to the role-playing genre, at least for now. This is very hard for us, particularly for me specifically. I founded Wizards of the Coast with the dream of building a great role-playing game company that would discover the RPG that would break out of the RPG industry and bring more gamers to role-playing. The company's first book was The Primal Order, a book that I authored and am immensely proud of. But I have come to the conclusion that if anyone is going to do something great and innovative with RPGs, it'll probably be someone else. I bow from the field. So that's the head of Wizards of the Coast, 2 years before they purchased TSR and take over as the publishers of D&D, the RPG that would break out of the RPG industry and bring more gamers to role-playing, no matter, whether you think it's a great game or not. And it's 2 years before they purchased TSR, they're like, we're going to focus on the cards. We're kind of done with TTRPGs in general, which is kind of remarkable. And I think that, over the next couple of years, it's worth noting that incredible hype around Magic cards in 93, 94, 95, it did start to people still love the game. It was growing, but like the hype and the expected growth trajectory did ease up a little bit. The market was probably a little bit oversupplied with cards in retrospect, because with the collectible card game, the incentive is to produce a lot of them. And a new deck came out around that time called Homelands that people loved for the art and the narrative, but considered pretty mechanically uninteresting. And so this idea of like the meta game, which is still quite novel in this era, this deck really isn't bringing a lot of those new interesting mechanical combinations. And so, after that, the time between new decks really started to space out quite a lot more. Incidentally, this is also an era when WotC got pretty litigious with that collectible card game patent. They were defending their intellectual property as granted by the government in a way that probably wasn't great for community goodwill. I'll put it that way. They were suing small developers. So the company ended up easing up on their card games only stance in 1997 when TSR was in millions of dollars of debt. So WotC jumped into a bidding war for TSR and ended up buying the company for $25 million. And this meant ownership of D&D and Gen Con. It meant that Dungeons & Dragons development was going to move to the Seattle area, where it's been ever since. Mm-hmm. And 2 years later, they got purchased by multinational games conglomerate Hasbro for $325 million, or about $607 million in today's dollars. So, to be clear, company launches in 1990, publishes their first source book in 1992, and they're purchased by Hasbro for $607 million, 2024 dollars, just 5 years later.
Yeah, but they own the card game, the hottest card game, not even the game itself, but the concept of the game, the patent in the US. And they also own the creators of tabletop games like the D&D. So they're like, it makes sense that Hasbro, who also just owns all of the board games, and Barbie, right?
Is Mattel and Hasbro the same company?
No, they're not.
I don't know about that.
They probably are now.
Let me check.
We're going to check.
They are not the same company. Please don't sue us.
Pepsi and Coke. Well, Mattel does figurines and Hasbro does board games. Okay.
Yeah. I think they're in. I don't think they're in super competing industries
yet.
Stay tuned.
So, is D&D and Magic a little child's game?
What do you mean? Let the record show we're both like in our 30s and play a lot of these games.
And also own dolls and figurines too?
I've been known to own a doll or a figurine in my time.
I own a lot more.
I think within arm's reach in Reilly's studio there might be a couple of them.
Scree and Fenton.
Scree and Fenton, our special guests, are here today. Kind of hanging out on the box the microphones get plugged into. Friends, you can probably tell which one of us is the audio producer. I just kind of see the boxes that Reilly plugs things into and trust that they're going to work.
All it is just plugging boxes into other boxes with cords.
You're really good at it.
Thank you.
Yeah. I've tried to set it up without you, and I was terrified.
Anyway, back to
right. What were we talking? We're doing a
talking
podcast episode. I thought that it might be fun to check out the Primal Order. I think it's a really fun game.
I'm excited.
And in the Primal Order guidebook, they have a section called the DIY Deity.
DIY Deity.
And the idea here is like, let's come up with a kind of player who, or not player character. Let's come up with a kind of NPC who would ascend to godhood. And so we're going to roll some dice. You have pencil and paper in front of you, and I'm going to get you to keep track of this. We're going to roll some tables and figure out who this is who has ascended to godhood.
All right.
We are going to start out with a special ability that this NPC had as a mortal. Could you please roll me a D100?
Oh, yes.
The biggest, chunkiest die.
Like rolling the biggest dice on the table.
Drop it from real high up so everyone can hear it. Oh shit! Where's it going? Where's it going?
I got a 46.
46. They're a good judge of character with bonuses to catch lies and predict others' general behavior.
Ooh, I am an Aquarius.
Are we rolling for your character? I love that. Let's do that.
Are we doing it? Who's? Are we?
We're rolling for a character who's going to have ascended to godhood in our campaign. Give me your character if you like, but I think it's meant to be an NPC.
Well, I'm just here to play.
Hell yeah.
What was I supposed to write down?
You're supposed to write down that they are a good judge of character, and that's a special ability they have. Not gonna lie, some of the special abilities in this D100s table are things like weather control and undetectable by magic, and you rolled
Good judge of character instead of like I was excited to be like, oh, that kind of sounds like the way I'd like to think of myself in the real world.
Do you want to roll for
but
something?
I could have been Storm from the X-Men.
Do you want to roll for a second one?
No, I want to stick with. Well, we're rolling for multiple. What are we doing here? We're rolling for multiple ones.
We can do a couple characters.
Yeah, good judge of character.
To figure out what level of wealth they have, it suggests, and this is a supplement made for any TTRPG, roll a D100, and the higher the number, the more wealthy they are to start with.
Oh, come on, big numbers.
Come on, middling numbers.
38.
Okay, yeah, look, this character doesn't have, like, palatial wealth or anything like that. I'm going to say that they're kind of doing comfortably. Let's talk about what their political position was when they were immortal. This is the NPC who's, like, ascended to godhood. Could you roll me a D8 to see what their former political position was?
A D8, yes, I can. I have the 2.
All right, this is a confusing one. They're the sole ruler of a major country.
Whoa, okay.
So I'm thinking if they're a good judge of character, they're modestly, a kind of modest means financially. I'm thinking they're like an elected leader.
I'm definitely an elected leader in a democratic republic type situation.
Yeah, either democratic republic or theocracy, because this does end with being a god. And most prime ministers don't end up being gods.
Major
Yeah.
country. What's my country's name?
I don't know. Canada. Prime Minister Reilly.
Prime Minister Reilly of Canada. Canada is going to be spelled K-A-N.
What is your character's name?
Y-U-H-D-A-H.
There we go. What's your character's name? Is this just Reilly? Is this once again Monocle's McGillicuddy?
Is it once again? Are we bringing Monocle's McGillicuddy back?
Your call.
No, he's a separate person.
Okay. Who's this then?
Canada.
So who's this?
Who's this?
Yeah.
What's my name?
Do you want me to just suggest names for your character?
Can I roll a table for? Do we have a table for it?
Yeah. One moment.
What's like a really... Jake, you are Canadian, so what's a Canadian type?
I'm pulling up the one sec. I got
most popular Canadian baby name.
They're the same as the US names. They're not fun. I got a plan though. I just gotta find this. Okay, got it. All right, so I've pulled up the second edition AD&D Book of Dwarves, and we're gonna roll on their dwarf name generator table. So do you want to generate a male name or a female name?
I'll go with the female name.
Cool. Roll this d20.
D20. Oh, it's a big D20 too.
It's a big chunky d20.
Oh yeah. Oh, I got a 19.
19. Okay, so this is second edition AD&D name generation. We're mixing systems, but that's what Primal Order is designed for.
We're just having a good time on
We're
Flashlights.
having a good time.
Mixing it up.
And this is also an era when they read a lot of Tolkien. So your character's first syllable is Thor.
Thor.
Thor, yep. And then roll another d10 for the second half of the name.
Ooh, another D10. 7.
Ina.
Nice. Thor Ina.
A character.
Kanyada.
A character that's
Prime Minister of Kanyada.
Yeah, I think this
Ina.
is reasonable. I appreciate
Ina.
that. We need character names legally distinct from Tolkien because we've recently been sued by Tolkien's estate. Thorina, not the same character as Thorin. No problem at all. That's your character. Who is the prime minister? Did we decide of a democracy?
Yeah.
Sounds good. In their personal entourage, they're going to have 2d4 amateur henchlings.
Oh, but also it said I'm a sole ruler.
Yes.
Our prime minister's sole rulers. Tell me more about Canadian politics, Jake.
Okay. Welcome to our spin-off show. Pardon me, but would you mind if I told you how we do it in Canada? And I'm your host, Jake. Like about half our guests, I'm from Canada, and we do have a lot of Canadian guests.
Yeah. The Great White North, right?
Something like that. I would characterize prime ministers as pretty powerful because, unlike presidents, they can propose laws. Right. In the U.S., the president can say it sure would be great if this thing happened for education or whatever, but they have to work with the House or whatever to do it. In Canada, the prime minister can just do that. They can introduce the law themselves.
Okay.
And so I'd say they're pretty. I mean, technically, the prime minister isn't the sole ruler. The sole ruler of Canada, as of recording this, is King Charles III.
So
maybe it's not like a constitutional monarchy like Canada, which is wild to say. Maybe it's a country where you're a little bit more of a strong man, or a strong woman character.
Strong woman character, good judgment, and I'm not greedy, I guess. Doing pretty good financially is what I wrote down.
You're not enriching yourself, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. Let's figure out your entourage. Could you roll me 2d4?
2D. Jake needs to point out which dice are what. Because
every time we play, it's kind of remarkable. Sorry.
Geometry's hard.
It's the pointy one.
Hey, I put together boxes with chords that make noises. 4.
Hell yeah. So 2d4, so roll another one.
Oh. 3.
So you have 7 amateur henchlings, and roll 1d4 for how many professional henchlings you have.
7 amateur.
Yes.
3
professional. So you are the sole leader of a country, and you have 7 interns who carry your bags and stuff like that.
Okay.
I think this is a pretty good situation.
I mean, I'm doing pretty good financially, but not well enough to pay these interns. But they're getting paid in experience.
I mean,
opportunities too.
Really?
Yeah.
You make a compelling case for internship. Have we considered having a campaign spotlight intern? That we pay in experience?
Yeah. Shoot us an email.
Yeah.
campaignspotlight@gmail.com.
I don't see why not. We're also going to come up with a friend and an enemy for your character.
Okay.
The supplement is heavy on the tables. Could you roll a d20 for who your friend is before you ascend to godhood?
What number?
D20.
D20. The big one, but not the biggest one. It's a 6.
Your friend is a minor official in a major country. That works. You're the sole ruler of a major country. And so a minor official is a friend of yours. I could see that.
Okay.
Yeah. And if you could roll for your enemy.
14.
Your enemy is a legendary priest.
Oh, dang.
I'm curious as to what kind of leader you are, because you're like a benevolent dictator, I guess. Is that the right way to think about this?
Sole ruler. Yes. If I'm a sole ruler, that is dictatorship, correct?
I guess. And there's a legendary priest who's your enemy.
Okay.
Before you ascend to godhood.
Honestly, separation of church and state, and there can only be one ruler in Kenyatta.
You make a good point. I don't think it's a problem.
Thoriana of Kenyatta.
Yeah, I guess. Is that all the stats we're gonna have?
Please tell me there's more tables to roll.
I do love rolling on tables. It looks like that's all the tables they have. From here, this chapter of the book is very heavy on like the logistics of ascension, and also like what the deity, like when Thoriana ascends to godhood, what is she the deity of? Or is she just the deity, singular?
Deity of. I think deity of something is more interesting. You said we don't have a table for this.
We don't.
Okay. My mortal enemy is a high priest. That's honestly exciting. Who's my friend again?
Your friend is a minor government official.
Oh, okay, yeah. So a minor government official, a fleet of unpaid interns, 3 professionals. I am in charge of the whole country.
Do you use your position in charge of the whole country as means of fueling your ascension?
I think I might have to, because you know what? The best person for the job is somebody who doesn't necessarily want it.
Go on.
And I think Thoriana, like she is in charge. She's not financially taking advantage of her position.
Yeah.
Again, like people working for her get to shake hands with other important people and hold my coffee and carry my important documents.
Yeah. The nuclear football and stuff.
My what?
Nuclear football?
The nuclear football.
You know about this, right?
Yeah, right? Somebody carries a suitcase with the codes?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, well, that's going to be one of the professionals. I'm not going to give that to the interns.
Honestly, makes sense.
They'll carry it around. And you know what? It's like the problem is this priest, he's or they, I don't, we
can say he.
Yeah. He's I know he's a false idol because I'm a good judge of character.
Oh, so he's worshiping like an incorrect or pretender god.
Something like that. Yeah. Ooh. He's up to no good.
Is he doing it deliberately or is he being fooled?
Well, you tell me. Where's the DM in this conversation?
Okay, I'm trying not to railroad you. I'm gonna say that this legendary priest, you have learned, is like deliberately spreading the word of like a demon pretending to be a divinity.
Oh, okay.
Right.
Well, I think, geez, if I know this, I'm gonna have to team up with my buddy Deborah, 3 doors down in the department of.
You want me to tell you what department Deborah's in?
I want to roll a table, or
okay, we're gonna pull up the presidential order of succession and roll on that.
Boom.
Cool. There's 12 cabinet members in this, approximately. Yeah, roll me a d12, and we'll say whatever number of cabinet member. That's what Deborah does.
8.
Deborah is the Secretary of Agriculture for Kenyatta.
Okay. Deborah.
And this is your friend.
Secretary of Culture.
Agriculture. Can
we roll for Deborah's last name on the dwarf table?
I don't see why not. Let me pull up that table for you. Yeah, let's why don't you roll me a D20 for the first half of her name?
Oh, the big one. Thank you. It's sparkly blue.
I love this. It's from my campaign is like space themed, and so that's why I got it.
It's a 3.
3, Bell. And could you roll a 10? A D10 rather?
D10.
Yep.
2.
Deborah Belaine. AIN.
Deborah Belaine, Secretary of Agriculture.
Yes.
Okay.
And so you and she have, I guess prior to your ascension, have determined that the legendary priest is, encouraging people to worship this demon.
Mm-hmm.
You were the head of the country, and so you have, I think, significant resources at your disposal. What are you going to do to fight this legendary priest? Bear in mind that this story is... We're coming up with the backstory of how you ascended to divinity. So it probably should end up with you, taking on the mantle of a god.
What's the priest's name?
Reilly.
Is this spinning off into a full?
Yeah, I feel like we have a full actual play going now. No, let me pull up another table for the priest's name. So I found a D&D supplement from 1994, not that long before, WotC would buy up TSR, and this supplement is called Dark Sun, and I'm going to find the name generating table from it. There's no rollable name generation table.
Primal Order. So in Primal Order, to back up to like where this all began, because we're really spinning this into a whole world, which I'm very excited about.
I'm also excited. I don't know if
notes.
Okay. I don't know if we're gonna come up with a name for the priest at the moment.
We'll wait on that. That's okay.
I do appreciate your style of being a player in a tabletop campaign, which is asking a lot of details that aren't really relevant to your decision, but do flesh out the world beautifully. We now know what Deborah's the secretary of agriculture.
Oh, lost in the sauce.
What were we talking about?
We were talking about magic and WotC.
Right. So this is the first supplement, the Primal
Order
from Wizards of the Coast, released a year before they became the publisher for Magic the Gathering.
That's amazing.
And it's a lot of fun. I would like to close it out by understanding how Thoriana goes from being a prime minister to being a deity. And Reilly's going to take us there.
Well, you just appreciate my attention to detail. I don't think I can really get from sole ruler, official title, prime minister of Canada, to deity.
Yeah,
in a sufficient way to wrap it up.
She's realizing that the only way that she can stop this legendary priest is to fight his demon patron.
Okay.
In hand-to-hand combat.
Specifically hand-to-hand.
Yes.
And I need to ascend.
What does the ascension ritual look like? Is it an election? Is this the end for our 7 unpaid interns?
Is it an election? That's a good concept, actually.
When you think of it, getting elected is I don't know.
I think I would I would get my power from people believing in me, honestly.
Which is how deities get power in this world, yeah.
Yeah. Because I'm a good person.
Are you elected to be a god? I think so.
I think Thoriana... I think Thoriana's gotta run the sole ruler. Do I get elected?
I think you're prime minister, and then once you're prime minister, you can run for.
You can run for prime deity.
Yeah.
Okay, prime deity of Canada.
Or yeah, I like that a lot. Once you ascended, are you still good? Once you have the power.
Absolute power corrupts absolutely. I think we would have to find out.
I think we'll stay tuned for Thoriana 2 Term Limits coming soon to a podcast near you. And let's call this one for now. But yeah, we were actually, if I recall what we were talking about before we spiraled in this direction, we're talking about WotC. They had this incredibly rapid rise from like hobby to gigantic multi-million-dollar corporation, and that was largely thanks to the success of Magic the Gathering. They ended up buying up TSR, like we talked about last time, in 1997, and then in 1999 they became part of Hasbro. And we'll talk more in the next few weeks about how things went, how things continue to go for WotC as a Hasbro subsidiary.
Amazing! I can't wait.
Neither can I.
And that is all for this week.
I'm Dungeon Inspector Jake.
And I'm Production Master Reilly.
If you're enjoying the show, subscribe and leave a review.
It helps other people find the show.
And we'll also bless that indie TTRPG Kickstarter you backed 5 years ago with the fortitude to finally release the game.
For more on the show, including links to all our social media, visit folderfrequencies.com/campaign spotlight.